guys, what's up? Ragtter here, welcoming you back to Ladder Anxiety and the Pokemon trading card game online. Ladder Anxiety is where we play games to have fun and relieve stress, and to facilitate this goal, I have created a new deck. Now, this deck's main win condition is Raikou, just like the last deck that I made. It has the attack Thunder Lance. This attack does 20 more damage for each lightning type energy attached to this Pokemon. This can get very big very quickly, but it needs a little help to get there. What it needs is Magnezone. Magnezone has the ability Magnetic Circuit. As often as you like during your turn, before your attack, you may attach a lightning type energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. This basically allows you to circumvent that one energy per turn rule and pump out as much energy onto your Pokemon as you have. And in order to protect Raikou and Magnezone, we have Zapdos and Lugia EX, who both resist fighting attacks, which Raikou and Magnezone are weak to. So, I'm kind of using this episode of Ladder Anxiety as a field test. I hope you don't mind, but now I tried to get into a game with this guy earlier, it didn't work. So hopefully we can get into this game. Okay, my opponent did finally load into the game, it just took forever and a day, that was really weird. So, I'm gonna lose the coin flip. Tails does indeed fail sometimes. So let's hope that my opponent doesn't have any other weird internet issues along the way. So I'm gonna get Raikou in my first hand. That's basically as optimum as can be, but I need to start getting Magnezone out. I also note that I don't have any lightning type energy in my hand, so I might have to Sycamore here. Alright. So, let's see what my opponent's got. He's got a Lapras and a Magikarp. Search your deck for a trainer card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterward. Water Splash. If heads, this attack does 20 more damage. So he's going to start setting that up right away. Hopefully this gives me a pretty good opening. So I'm going to get Remoraid out. That makes me happy. And I don't want to put down my Rough Seas, because he's using a Water-type deck. So instead, I'm actually... and this is going to be a little hard to see. I'm going to Sycamore this entire hand away. And I'm actually pretty rewarded for my efforts. So I'm going to put down Zapdos. I'll slap an energy onto Raikou. And now I'll use my Trainer's Mail. And I'll use that to get a Versus Seeker. Although I probably could have done with that rare candy. And now I'll do one more. Lysander and a Floatstone. I think it's got to be Lysander. And that's all she wrote for me. So I'll end my turn there. I need to get Magnemite out as quickly as possible, because otherwise I'm going to have to end up Sycamoring my Magnezone, and that's not going to be fun for anybody. What I might end up doing is... ooh, he's got a Regice. Now, Regice is pretty good because it stops Pokemon EX attacks, but this deck only runs Lugia EX, so I'm not really worried about that at all. So Lapra's going to go get its errand running. What I think I might do is... Lysander Magikarp to the active slot, just to mess with my opponent. Because clearly, my opponent wants that Magikarp on the bench in order to set up as much as he can. So he's going to get that Dive Ball. And I'm going to get another Trainer's Mail. So I'm going to use that. And I get... Professor Birch's is probably the better option here. Because at least with that, I don't lose as many cards. Although, taking a chance on this... Come on. Yes, I'm rewarded. And I got my Ultra Ball, and I got some energy. Okay. Oh, and Professor's Letter. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to toss one of these Sycamore, and this other Lightning type energy. I'm going to use it to go get Magnemite. There you are. Although I could have used it to get Octillery. That probably would have been smarter. Either way, I have to end my turn here. I have other rare candies in the deck, and I've got Magneton, and I've still got... I run 2 copies of Magneton in this deck, and then 3 rare candies, so I've got a lot of means of evolving my Magnemite. Took me a second to remember what I was running, but... So he is going to get Gyarados up in the end, and this Gyarados has Berserker Splash. This attack does 80 damage to each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, and Aqua Tail. Flip a coin for each Water-type energy attached to this Pokemon. This attack does 30 more for each heads. So he's got... if he attaches a lot of energy to that Gyarados, he's got a lot of potential damage right there. And it only takes 2 heads to knock out my Raikou, assuming I don't have any previous damage. And you might say, why 2 heads? 90 plus 30 makes 120. Raikou has the Shining Body ability. If this Pokemon has any lightning type energy attached to it, any damage done to this Pokemon by attacks is reduced by 20. So I'm sitting kind of pretty there. Okay. So I hate to do this, but I think I might be able to make this work. So I'm going to use my Professor's Letter to get 2 lightning type energy. Then I'm going to Ultra Ball to discard them, which hurts me inside, it really does. But that's going to let me go for Magnezone. Now I can Rare Candy, evolve Magnemite, and now my energy engine is ready to go. So let's Professor Sycamore and get 7 new cards. And we get Octillery, and we get another Magnezone, and we get a Floatstone. Alright, this is a good hand. So I'm going to play you. I'm going to put a Floatstone onto Magnezone in case he gets Lysandered. I'll attach an energy to Raikou here. And now let's Octillery. And I get another Magnemite. Oh, I'll save that though. I'll put Lugia EX out there. Okay. Now let's Thunderlance. So it's only going to do 110. I don't have a Muscle Band out here yet. And I might have actually forgotten to put one in the deck now that I think about it. But that's fine. I'm just going to choose not to think about it. So basically what I can do now is next turn I can use my Ultra Ball to toss Magnemite and Magneton to get more draw out of Octillery. And hopefully get some more energy my way. He's got that Gyarados really set up though. So what I might do instead is if I can get a lot of energy going... Actually, I don't even need a lot of energy because I've got Lysander. So I can pull that Gyarados to the front and knock it out right away. Oh, that's a mean thing. That's a mean thing that I'm about to do, but I'm going to do it. Wait, okay, first. Let's use Ultra Ball to toss Magnemite and Magneton. Just going to cut down on our total card quantity. I'll use it to pick out a Raikou. Now, I'm going to Lysander, pull that Gyarados up to the front, and because it's weak to electric, I don't need that much energy to knock it out. But I'm not going to get any either. So, Thunderlance. Discard all of my opponent's hard-earned work. And that's going to net me a prize. And we get a Professor Birch's, so that makes me pretty happy. Because now I'll be able to basically reset this less than optimal hand. And I think that might have been the breaking point for my opponent. Not really wanting to pick a Pokemon after that, but he is going to pick Regice in the end. That was probably really hard for him to go through, because he had a lot of energy attached to that thing. Now I've got a second Lysander, so I can do that again to that Lapras that he's trying to save. And he's going to slap an energy onto it too. I am not a nice person. So I did 110 last time. Yeah, we can do this. So I'm going to bring Lapras to the front again. And Raikou's going to knock it out. And that's going to net me another prize and some extreme disrespect points. Yeah, my opponent's done after that. I'm not surprised. I would be too. Okay. So we got at least one win out of this. That makes me pretty happy. And a tournament ticket. I love tournament tickets. I think we can go for one more, but with how laggy the game was last time, that might be the end of the episode. So my opponent, after taking way too long, decides that I get to go first, but that's fine. So I actually get like an awesome start here. I get Raikou and Magnemite on my first hand. It's really hard to argue with this. So what I can do with this hand is I could... And I'm a bit reluctant to throw away that rare candy, but I could Professor Birch's, which would shuffle my hand into my deck. I could use... Well, first I would use Level Ball to get Remoraid out onto the bench. So my opponent's got... Oh, that's a bad start for my opponent. I feel pretty bad about this. So my opponent's got Shaman EX for his first Pokemon, which is... When you run Shaman EX in your deck, you don't want that on your active slot. You want that in your bench, or in your hand waiting to be played. So I've got Remoraid out here. I'm going to Professor Birch's to shuffle this hand away. Tails is going to fail me though. But, on the plus side, at least I got Raikou. So with this Professor's Letter, I will have enough energy to attack with Raikou. But I kind of feel like I'm picking on a weakened opponent. If my opponent can't get another Pokemon besides Shaman EX on the bench, then this game's going to be over pretty quickly. In fact, without more Pokemon, this game will be over in exactly 2 turns. But my opponent does have an Ultra Ball, so he is saved. He's gonna... Oh, he's running a Night March deck. So he's gonna get another Shaman EX. And actually, that kind of perplexes me a little bit. Okay, no, he has enough cards to discard in his hand to make drawing with Shaman EX worth it. Because he was taking so long with his turn, I assumed he might not have a lot to play. But my opponent here is running a deck called, or based around Night March, where the attacks are going to do 20 damage times the number of Pokemon in his discard pile that have Night March. So right now, he's probably looking for other copies of Lampent, or Pumpkaboo, and Joltik if he has to, in order to toss them in the discard pile. And I was right. Wait. Okay, yeah, he had 2 Lampents and a Joltik. The new stacking confuses me a little bit. So he's going to get a Float Stone onto this Shaman EX. He's going to get to draw more cards with that one. And now my opponent is definitely in this game. So we've got a game, folks. This is one I could lose, and I would be pretty excited about because Night March is awesome. Even if I go down, this deck is going to be really cool to watch. And if I can get my deck going, then this is definitely going to be a good match between the two of us. So my opponent using pretty much anything he has that will let him discard whatever cards he can. He's going to discard Joltik. All he needs is 1 or 2 Night March attackers to basically take out every Pokemon that I have. The danger here is, of course, that Night March users are unevolved Pokemon, Pumpkaboo and Joltik. So they are very vulnerable to any kind of damage that I inflict. It won't take a lot of energy on Raikou to individually knock them out. So that puts a lot less pressure onto me. I think I only need the bare minimum. Okay, that was pretty clever by my opponent. What he just did there was he used Hex Maniac, which disabled abilities. Basically, he's trying to keep Magnezone from getting its turn 1 ability going. I'm just going to use Professor Birch's so that I don't have to deal with that. And I'm going to get 7 new cards. One of which is Rough Seas, so I'm going to take immediate advantage of that. Then I'm going to evolve into Magneton, and I'm going to slap a Float Stone onto it actually. Because if Magneton or Magnezone get Lysander, that's going to be an enormous momentum killer for me. Though I do have my escape ropes, so we'll have to see. And this is all I can do for now, but it's all I really want to do. Unless my opponent has another Dimension Valley, I've set him back with that Rough Seas. Hopefully I've set him back. So we'll have to see. One trick I might do is to use my escape rope to put Magneton up into the active slot, while my opponent might be forced to put... Okay, so that's a pretty neat trick my opponent's going to do. Instead of just immediately using that Float Stone, what my opponent's going to do is they're going to use this Sky Return attack, return this Pokemon and all cards attached to it to your hand. So that's going to deal a little bit of damage to my Raikou, and it's going to send Pumpkaboo up to the front. Oh, he's actually going to send the Shaman EX up. Okay, what I'm going to do... Well, first of all, I'm going to heal. Then, I'm going to use my Judge to make my opponent shuffle all those cards back into his deck. I'll play out my last Raikou. I've got 2 Professor Sycamores out here. And I'm going to get 2 prize cards courtesy of the Shaman EX knockout. So 1, 2. I get a Remoraid and a Magnezone. Perfect! So as long as my opponent doesn't have a 3rd Hex Maniac, next turn I can start setting up with Magnezone and really rock the field. Now hopefully my opponent also doesn't have another Dimension Valley, because if they do, then I'll be put into a severe amount of trouble. Although with Lugia EX, I could get some pretty easy knockouts. Actually, Lugia EX might be the way to go here. I'll have to see what my opponent does. I also didn't... Did he show what card he got? Okay, he didn't have to reveal it. I was about to say, was I not paying close enough attention? Because if your opponent can be showing the cards that they get, you absolutely should be looking and taking note of what they have. But my opponent's got all his Pumpkaboos set up, and he's probably going to Battle Compressor the rest of his Joltics away. And I think he should have one more Lampent if it wasn't benched. He should have 2 more Joltics, and 1 more Lampent, assuming that it's still in there. Also, 1 more Pumpkaboo. And when I say assuming that it's in there, I mean assuming that it's not in my opponent's prize cards. Which to a deck like this can be pretty detrimental. You want as many cards in the discard pile as you possibly can get. Since I think with what my opponent has right now, he didn't find any more Night March users. That's probably bad for my opponent. He's going to verse a Seeker though, probably going to look for that Hex Maniac one last time. Actually going to look for Professor Sycamore to try and get himself a better draw going. So Professor Sycamore going to come out. What is that card? Oh! I know what that card is. I didn't recognize it. Target Whistle. Put a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile onto his bench. That would basically be to flood my discard pile with as many cards, or to flood my bench with as many cards from my discard pile as possible. Basically to prevent me from playing the Pokemon that I want to play. But that's kind of useless to my opponent because I have all the cards that I want out here right now. So my opponent going to Ultra Ball again, going to toss his last Pumpkaboo actually. He's really running out of cards in his deck. Which is what happens when you play this deck. I really like it. I used to run it a lot myself, and now I tend to run Vespiquen more, but it hasn't worked out for me as much, so I'm probably going to remake my Night March deck at some point. So here's what my opponent's basically trying to do, I can tell, is he wants a Dimension Valley so he can attack this turn. And if he doesn't get it, then... Startling Megaphone. Oh! That was to get rid of the Floatstone attached to my Magnezone. So now my Magnezone is vulnerable to Lysandering, which is pretty smart by my opponent, but I don't intend to give him the chance. So let's see what my opponent had prized. Joltik and Lampent. Okay. So I'm going to play down my last Raikou, and I'm going to evolve Magnezone. Because I don't need that much energy attached to this one, I'm going to attach energy to Raikou now, or to another Raikou. I can't talk tonight. So now I'm going to get my Professor Sycamore, and here's where the magnetic circuit starts to get exciting. So I'm going to slap the energy onto this Raikou, and then we'll put one onto this Raikou. So now I'm pretty well set up. What do I have in my discard pile? I've got 1 Remoraid, so it's not worth going for that. I'll just go for Thunderlance, knock out this Pumpkaboo. With that much energy attached, I knock out the Shaman EX due to its Electric-type weakness, and I knock out any Night March user, even with the Fighting Fury belt equipped. So my opponent gonna send this Pumpkaboo up to the front. I'm wondering if he has another Dimension Valley. What Dimension Valley basically does, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this before, is it will reduce a Psychic-type Pokemon's attacks by 1 colorless energy, so as to make use of Night March easier for Pumpkaboo, who has an awkward 3-cost amount. But, depending on what energy my opponent has, and if my opponent has that Dimension Valley, this could be it. I might have put a big stop to that momentum there. Actually, my opponent got pretty bad draw, so it wasn't more up to what I did, it was more up to the fact that my opponent didn't get the cards that they wanted, which is pretty unfortunate. But, I would have definitely tossed all of those Pumpkaboos over tossing the Joltiks. Because you see, Joltik here, Joltik has a simple little 2 colorless Night March, and if you noticed before, my opponent played an energy that was worth 2 colorless. I'm just going to go for Thunderlance again. There's no point in playing any of the other cards that I have. Get another prize. Ooh, an Ultra Ball. I can use that to look for the Remoraid that I probably won't use. So, the idea behind using Joltik is that even though it's really weak in terms of HP, it can get a very quick and very strong Night March going. Pumpkaboo has a little more HP, but not enough to be entirely significant. It doesn't get knocked out by Crobat, that's the big advantage of Pumpkaboo. But, you have to play around that extra energy, and that can slow your momentum down severely. This is what makes Night March just a little bit weird for people. And my opponent is definitely scanning his cards, trying to find a way out of this. I'm not sure if he has one. If I had a Lysander, I would just end it with that Shaman EX, but I think I've played both of mine. So my opponent, in the end, gonna choose Pumpkaboo to be his sacrificial lamb, This Pumpkaboo, if my math is correct, should be his last attacking Pokemon, actually. Yep, and he's gonna forfeit. He had the only other Joltik left in his deck, in his prize cards. That Pumpkaboo was his last attacking Pokemon. I'm not sure he had the energy. He definitely didn't have another Dimension Valley or would have played it. So let's see what I got for that. That's a good prize. 50 trainer tokens makes me happy. Alright, and we also got the next tier in my prize. 4 trainer chests. You know what? Since we had such good games today, let's reward ourselves a little bit. Let's crack open a trainer chest. I've got 5. Here we go. Oh, come on, I can do better than a battle reporter. Draw cards until you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent. No, I can do better than that. Come on now. Another one! That's not funny. I'm trying to reward the viewers. And myself. Alright, finally, it's not another battle reporter. You guys ready? Here we go. Ooh, I've never seen this card before. Azumarill with Alpha Recovery. When this Pokemon is healed, double the amount healed. With Tail Wrap, flip 2 coins. This attack does 30 damage times the number of heads. And Dwindling Wave. This attack does 100 damage, minus 10 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. That is a very interesting little card. I don't really know what to think about that. I think that's definitely a kitchen top counter card. I don't think that really sees any competitive play. But it doesn't have to be a fun card to play with. So, if you guys have enjoyed this episode of Ladder Anxiety, then please let me know with a like and a comment down below telling me just how much fun you've had, and let me know what you think of the new deck that I've got here. I'll show you the card list just to end things off on, in case you're interested in making a deck like this for yourself. It doesn't run too many expensive cards, but it does have a couple, so be on the lookout for that. And I will see you guys next time when we return to the Pokemon trading card game online to have some more fun. Maybe with this deck, maybe refined a little bit. We'll have to see. But until then, be sure to take care and have a good one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!